Coming up, the $1,000 Cherokee, a deal you won't believe.
But believe this, the safest year for general aviation ever. Good news from the Nall report. And having fun while getting your feet wet.
And thunder overhead. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Brightline, instruments for professionals.
General aviation is really safe. We're getting safer.
The best GA safety record in 25 years. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Melissa Rudinger.
And I'm Tom Haynes. The latest Joseph T. Nall report is out, and for the first time in the 25-year history of the report, the fatal accident rate for fixed-wing, non-commercial aircraft has dropped below one accident for every 100,000 flight hours.
The overall accident rate is at an all-time low, and so if you divide the number of flight hours by 100,000, so it doesn't, it doesn't matter whether you flew a lot or flew a little. The rate is really low, and it continues to get lower every year.
The Nall report is the Air Safety Foundation's deep dive into GA accident statistics. It's the most thorough analysis available, and what it shows is good news for GA safety. In the 10 years since 2004, the total number of fixed-wing GA accidents dropped 27%. Fatal accidents dropped by nearly 30%. And when we look at the accident rate, the number of accidents per 100,000 hours, the improvement's equally impressive. But there is still room for improvement.
We still see some of the standard areas of concern, like loss of control, weather, CFIT, engine power plant management, and takeoff, landing, and go-round accidents. And so those are areas that we can help focus pilots in on to train and get better.
The Nall report data helps the Air Safety Institute design and target programs to address specific safety issues. The data is broken down into very specific areas. You can find the 25th Annual Nall Report on our website, aopa.org. Just search Nall Report.
And here's another bit of good news for general aviation. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources is going to be opening more of the state's waters to seaplane operations. AOPA and the Seaplane Pilots Association worked with the state legislature and the governor's office to expand seaplane access. And a lot of pilots say that seaplane flying is about the most fun you can have in the air and on the water.
That's true. Certainly our boss, Mark Baker, is one of them. His favorite airplane is his Super Cub on floats. And to get an idea of how fun it can be, we sent our seaplane virgin, Natasha Stenbach, out to the Lake Winnebago Seaplane Base to get her feet wet.
This is seaplane flying. I have to admit, it takes a minute to get used to all that water right outside the door.
Okay, guys, ready?
Ready. Ask any pilot with a seaplane rating, and they'll tell you this is the most fun you can have with wings. AOPA President Mark Baker started flying seaplanes about 25 years ago and shares his experience at AirVenture.
Seaplane flying, for me, identifies with how many decisions you have to make about landing to the wind, where the people are, where the boats are, where the watercraft are, how you're going to get to the dock or to the beach.
As a private pilot with an instrument rating, I've always thought about what it would be like to land on water. So we made a few phone calls. We're going to head on over to the seaplane base.
And it's going to be bumpy.
Okay.
As nothing you've seen on an airplane before.
Okay. Seaplane pilot, airline captain, and CFI Edgar Tello, also known as E.T., was spot on as he read the wind and waves. It was bumpy on Lake Winnebago and nothing like I had ever felt before. Once we cleared the water, this 1947 Seabee felt more like an airplane again.
Okay, I'm going to go underneath behind you, make a right turn.
We flew formation with a float plane, and from here, I was getting a real taste of this aquatic aviation lifestyle. It's what I would call working and playing hard at the same time.
Okay, wheels up, flaps down, pressure, landing on the water. Don't do this in a normal airplane landing.
Once we were back on the water, I realized to be a good seaplane pilot, you have to be a good sailor.
A crosswind here, the airplane wants to weather vane, so I gotta add power, lots of power.
Me too, we're gonna fire a little bit more.
As we got closer to the dock, I had a new appreciation for how easy it is, by comparison, to taxi an airplane to a hangar. Docking a seaplane takes another set of skills and sometimes an extra set of hands. Wow, what an incredible flight in a 1947 Seabee, thanks to our amazing pilot E.T. I've definitely been inspired to go out and get my seaplane rating, and I certainly hope that you'll find your closest lake and do the same. I'll see you out there in the sky. At AirVenture Seaplane Base, Natasha Stenbach, AOPA Live.
Looks like she's having a lot of fun out there.
Absolutely. My only time in a seaplane is an albatross, so that's a little bit of a different experience.
Well, that's my most recent one, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I was flying an albatross at Oshkosh, and flying seaplanes really is a lot of fun. The places you can go, it's pretty neat. And you know, the Seabee might look a little strange compared to some seaplanes, but here's something really bizarre. The Airlander 10, supposedly the world's largest aircraft, has just moved out of its hangar in the UK in preparation for its first test flights. This so-called hybrid aircraft combines fixed-wing, helicopter, and lighter-than-air technologies to fly. The blimp's aerodynamic shape provides about 40% of the lift, and it's been named the Martha Gwynne after the company chairman's wife. So, honey, does this airship make my butt look big?
And if that's a bit too large and you still want a unique aircraft, check out the Commutercraft Innovator. We first showed you this radical design in our coverage from the Sebring Sport Aviation Expo. Now, the pre-production flight tests are complete and the company is selling kits. Designer Richard Hogan is excited.
Well, it's been an exciting last 6 months with the airplane flying now. It's opened a lot of new avenues. We've been able to do a lot of validation of our plans for the new aircraft and work towards production. So that's been the exciting thing. We started taking orders basically in April, and we're amazed to see the response. But many of them had been following us for some time, but we've been very fortunate to be able to get clients lined up. We'll start our first alpha builders this fall.
The plan is to eventually make the airplane roadable. It has a canard out front, but the company calls it a multi-lift surface aircraft. They had a cabin mock-up matched to a flight simulator at AirVenture, and the airplane will cost you around $150,000 to build. Find more at commutercraft.com.
Well, whatever the shape of the aircraft, Gamma says the industry isn't selling as many of them. The General Aviation Manufacturers Association report for the first half of 2016 shows airplane shipments declined 4.5%. Airplane billings fell 11% from $10 billion to $9.3 billion. Piston airplane deliveries were down 4.5%. Well, when we come back, a little brighter news, including the incredible story of the $1,000 Cherokee.
And the snarl that can only be a T-34. Stay with us.
Meet the pilots who fly with AOPA Insurance. They love flying and saving money, just like you. At AOPA Insurance, we understand how you fly and provide the coverage you need to keep on flying. Call for a free quote and see which AOPA insurance plan is right for you.
Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week. You know, a lot of people dream about owning an airplane.
And many think that's all they can do, just dream. But aircraft ownership can be affordable even for people of modest means. Jill Talman tells us about the $1,000 Cherokee.
And you can make this happen. You don't have to make millions of dollars to be able to enjoy this.
The dream of aircraft ownership can be much more real than you might think.
Here in Monroe, North Carolina, we met a pilot who managed to buy an airplane on a surprisingly small budget.
How small?
He asked me, what I would offer. And I said, I'll be perfectly honest, I would offer, I feel like I could offer like $1,000.
That's right, $1,000 Cherokee. Joseph Atkins was looking for an affordable way to get an aircraft, and he noticed this Ramp Queen.
The plane had been sitting for a couple years right over in the corner, and we'd always watched it and tried to see what it was doing over there, and we'd been checked on it, took the bird's nest out of the cowling and stuff, and finally just decided one day to give the guy a call.
The owner had to stop flying about 10 years ago, but he did what he could to preserve the aircraft. Mechanic Cody Buse agreed to work on the old bird.
The deal was that if I helped him fix it up, that I got to use it for my private pilot training.
And surprisingly, there wasn't that much to fix.
the stuff that we had to do was stuff that we had to do anyway. You know, the hoses time out after so many years, we had to replace all those. But we knew that was going to happen going into it.
It took months and about $2,500 in parts to get her airworthy. And then the first flight with an experienced Cherokee pilot at the controls.
And I was a nervous wreck. You know, I was completely white. A friend of mine was in the plane. You know, we'd worked on this thing for 10 months. It's a labor of love, but then you also worry about what can happen. You know, you're running through your head. Did I remember to, put the oil back in the engine or something like that? You know, you just run through everything.
She may not be much to look at right now.
Really, your logbook doesn't care what the plane looks like, so don't worry about painting it just yet. So I'm saving up for paint. I'm saving up for ADS-B compliance, which is everybody knows is coming.
Atkins has blogged about the experience at thisoldcherokee.com.
You know, one of the reasons that I wrote about this plane and blogged about the experience was the fact that I wanted to show that aviation is affordable to the middle class. You can completely afford a 140 just like this that's outfitted with modern avionics or semi-modern avionics for the price of a Honda Civic.
In Monroe, North Carolina, Jill Tallman, AOPA Live.
What a great bargain. You can read more about Joe's $1,000 Cherokee in the September edition of AOPA Pilot Magazine.
Now, we have to admit that $1,000 for a certified airplane really was the deal of a lifetime. But to Joe's larger point, if you can afford a Honda, and I don't mean the Honda Jet, you can afford an airplane. We checked VREF and found that you could expect to pay about $23,000 for a 1972 Cherokee 140. Cessna Skyhawk of about the same vintage is in the $34,000 range. Not cheap, but affordable for regular folks, particularly in a flying club or a partnership. If you're an AOPA member, you can look up used airplane prices on our website. Just search VREF.
What could have been is no more. The Bugatti 100P project has crashed. Friends and fans and pilots around the world are mourning. Pilot and builder Scotty Wilson is dead, and the airplane is destroyed. The remake of the classic racer crashed on its third test flight. This is video from the first flight test last year. The original was an air racer built in France in 1939. It had to be hidden before its first flight due to the German invasion, and the original never flew. In 2008, Scotty Wilson set out to rebuild the unique racer and see it fly. He reverse engineered the design based on old photos and drawings, and this was to be the airplane's last flight before going to a museum. Witnesses told local media that the airplane took off and was not climbing fast. The airplane's left wing dropped and the racer crashed. Scotty Wilson was retired Air Force and was an 11,000-hour pilot. He was 66 years old.
Quick change of gears here. We hope you'll make your plans to be with us for the second fly-in of the year. The AOPA Bremerton Regional Fly-In is coming up. It's being held August 19th and 20th on the Kitsap Peninsula. That's just across Puget Sound from Seattle.
And that's where we find AOPA Live's Paul Harrop, who tells us you should plan an extra day to see the Emerald City.
Let's start with the obvious. This is one of the prettiest areas of the United States.
This is an awesome place to fly. We've got spectacular scenery, a lot of water, a lot of places, destinations to go to.
Nestled between the Cascades and the Olympics, Bremerton is right off Puget Sound. Tall trees, dramatic views, and named peaks abound. A 45-minute ferry ride takes you from Bremerton across the Sound to Seattle. It's more than a functional means of transportation, though. It is a beautiful ride. And for the Av Geek, you'll get to see departures from Boeing Field and SeaTac come right over you. When you arrive in downtown Seattle, take a left and check out the quintessential touristy place to visit, Pike Place Market. Yes, they still throw the fish, but this is so much more than that. Sample locally made products and produce. All of the vendors here must make their own wares locally.
Morning guys, how we doing?
Just down the street you'll find what's known these days as the original Starbucks. It used to be around the corner. Aviation is still a huge part of this world-class city, so no better way to see it than by air. Just north of downtown, you'll find Lake Union, and on the southeast side, Seattle Seaplanes. For less than $100, you can take a 20-minute flight around the city. Looking up at the Space Needle as your pilot turns base to final is not something you will ever forget.
So certainly worth planning a day before or after the AOPA Bremerton fly-in to come over here to Seattle and spend some time. Really a remarkable city, rich in aviation history. And one thing you may not know, the Space Needle, right over my shoulder, owned by a pilot and AOPA member. In Seattle, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thanks, Paul. And you can find all the details and RSVP at aopa.org/fly-in. You can also find the NOTAM and a video on fly-in procedures there, and we hope to see you in Bremerton.
Are you going?
I am. How about yourself?
I'll be there. I hope to see all you out there too. And the kids, well, they'll have something new at the Bremerton Airport as well. Brand new playground. The aviation-themed playground opened just this week, well in time for the AOPA fly-in. Bremerton Airport Director Fred Salisbury said he wanted a place where kids' dreams can take flight. And speaking of playgrounds, as we wrap up this week, we head back to AirVenture in Oshkosh. We'll leave you with a look at the T-34 Mentor flyover. The views come from pilot Walt Fricke's airplane. He was given his Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award at Oshkosh this year.
Congrats, Walt. And we'll see you here again next Thursday for another AOPA Live This Week.
T-34 show center right now.